Hi and welcome to another tutorial from Blender Insight, and this time I was thinking of it to do this pattern. And the thing with this pattern is that it looks really simple because it's just diagonal lines, and this looks like a square or something, and this is also just a square. But in reality it's a lot of job to make it, because we have some black here and we have white here. We have some black and white, we have another color here, so we have three colors to have in mind when we're working with this. And we need to mask a lot of stuff, so I was thinking that first of all we need to figure out how to make this black and this white and this black and this white. Then when we've done that, we add the diagonal line and mask those together in some way. And we also take away the middle part of that diagonal line with a square, and then we can drag this, and then we need to do these small triangles as well. So we need to put it together, but we start from beginning by Shift A, input texture coordinate, and there will be at least some part that is symmetrical because we have this tile here. So that means that I have subtract first, vector math, subtract, change it to 0.5. And we also add a multiply, so Shift D, multiply, put that in and change it to 2. And to make a tile we add an absolute, so an absolute here. So now we have that in here. But first of all we need to make this black and white thing, and I was thinking that we can do that by comparing the X and Y and make like triangles, like one triangle here that is white, one that is black, one that is white, and one that is black, because then we will get everything correct. So I will show you what I mean by do a separate here, and then we just add a less than. So Shift A, convert the math, and then change this to less than. And if I now take the X here, then we have this, but if I change it to the Y, then we have this, because these will always be diagonal to each other, because this is 0 in the X direction, this is 1 in the X direction, this is 0 in the Y direction, and this is 1 in the Y direction. So this is like 0.5 in both directions, this is 1 in both directions. So that means that it will go diagonal, and that means that if I compare these, we will always get these triangle shapes, and that will work perfectly here, because then this part will be black, which is this part. This part will be white, which is this part. And then on the other side, this will be black, and this is black, and this will be white, and that is white. So we have solved the problem with two colors on each. So now it's just to make the diagonal lines, and to make that we take these directly from the UV, because we don't want to have anything symmetrical, it's just a diagonal line. So we copy this, Shift D, and take that from the UV, and we can just add things together. So Shift A, convert the math, add, and now we get this diagonal line, but it's way down and it's also gradient. We would like it to be black and white and be a bit higher up, and to fix that we can use a compare. So Shift D, change to compare, because if we compare then we get the diagonal line, and then we can move the line by changing the value here, because we get everything true that is exactly the same as we get out here. And if we add X and Y together we get a maximum of 2. So if I put in 1, that will be half of 2, so that will be the center point. Then the epsilon here is the range, because now this works like this, that if this value and this value is the same value, we get 1 out, which is white, but we have a range, and the range is epsilon. So if I put that to 0.4 or 0.3 or something like that, then the range will be true for everything that is plus minus 0.3, meaning that 1.3 to 0.7 is true. So everything that will be white, the rest will be black. And suddenly we have our diagonal line that we then can combine with these different colors that we had here. So the final thing to do now is to make the square that we have in the center here. So that we can do with the maximum, because that is how we do tiles. So we use this absolute separate and we add a maximum up here. And if I take that here, you can see that we get like a square here, but we need to make it black and white. So we can copy this one, Shift D, and now we have a square. And I think we use this, and then we need to combine these two things. And I think we wait a little bit with this one, but we combine this part with this part. And it should be just to multiply in this case, what I can see. So Shift D, multiply, and this one, and we have it here. And then we can change the width and so on like this. And I think we stop here on 0.6 because that looks correct to this reference image. Then we need to add this as well. But here we need to think a bit, because this here is black and white. This here is also black and white, but we need to work with 3 colors because we have some bluish here, we have black, and we have white. So if we just compare these with less than and multiply and so on, something will go away. We need to have 3 different colors. So to make that happen, we can take this result and we can subtract it with 0.5 and then do a test with the minimum value between these, because then this will be 0.5 on the back side here, and it will be 0 here and 0.5 here, and this will be 0.0 and 1. So suddenly we have three different values to play with. So I think that will work fine. So if I take this one and subtract that with 0.5 and then take it again, Shift D, and do a minimum between these like this. Let's see, so I was thinking correctly now, because we didn't get it exactly as I was thinking. This is should be if I do it like this, then no, it should be like this. I need to think a bit more what we have here. So we have something that is greater than, we have this, we get this result. And I was thinking that, okay, we have to put, yes, of course, yeah, yes, we have this result. But the thing is not, we are working with a negative number, and a negative number is black. So what we have to do to make my amazing solution work is, of course, add back, so it erases everything again. So I take Shift D here and I add, yes, and now we get everything. So it worked as I was thinking it should work. So by adding subtract 0.5, we got a negative number. The negative number was the minimum here. That was what came out here. But since both a negative number and a 0 is black, we needed to raise the 0 to 0.5, and we needed to get the negative 0.5 to be 0. So we add 0.5 in the beginning. And then we have this. So now we have solved everything on this side, and all we need to do now is the diagonal line, so we get that in as well. And then we diagonal line that is not something symmetrical, so we can use this instead, that goes directly from the UV. And we can just use this compare directly, I think. So we can take that, put it in here, and if I use this, we get it on this direction, exactly as I thought. but it's too wide, and I think the logical thing would be to make that like half the width of this one, so it matches one of these sides, and in that case it would be 0.15, and that looks okay. And we can just add those things together, so I drag this out, Shift D to add this, and then we take this in the bottom here, and yes, now we have that in. What do we have left? We need to make these triangles here, and what I can see is more or less just to reuse this diagonal thing where we used an add and compare, but increase the size until it cuts off here and use that as a mask. So we take this add and compare, Shift D, duplicate it, put it down here, and we can then add from the separate, we add X and Y. So now it's rather small, but I go from the UV to the separate, and then I take the X and the Y, and I bring it to this add and to this compare. And if I show you the compare, we have it like this. And my thinking here was that if I increase the epsilon like this, then we can cut the corners here, and that is what we need here. So, but now we get the same problem that we had before, that it cannot be just black and white. We need to get it into be like 3 different colors to make everything happen here. So if I do this correctly, we can do it like this, that I can add a subtract here. So Shift A, converter, math, but I put it in this direction and I put subtract here, because then I get it black here. So then I can subtract this here with a half. The only thing right now is that this was 0.1. If I subtract with 0.5, I get a negative value here, and I don't want a negative value. I want to be 0 and 0.5. So then I can just check this clamp here, and that will bring everything in the range of 0 to 1, so we take away all the negative. So now we have 0 here and we have 0.5 here. So then we can use that and just subtract that part with 0.5, and since this is 0, it will not subtract anything. So then we can just put that together with this. So Shift D, and we do a subtract here, and if I have my thoughts correct, put that together, put that out, we get this here. And now we can see we are a little bit off on the edges here, but that is just to change the compare here, so you can see. So we can try even more, 8.3, 8.5 perhaps. Yep, that will work fine. So 0.85, 0.85. So now we have that in, and what we need to do now is to make more tiles out of this. So to make more tiles, we add scale and fraction. So Shift A, converter, and vector mat. Put that in here, put that in here, but we change it to fraction, because then I don't need to do it twice. I can just copy this, Shift D, and put scale here, and then we get it directly. And we need at least 4 of these, so 4, and now we have 4, but they all go in the same direction, and here we have a rotation, so we also need some type of a rotation into this. So, and that will be after I have splitted it up, so we need rotation here. So Shift A, and then go to vector rotate. As I said before, it's not an easy pattern, even if it looks very easy. You have to think about a lot of stuff. So I put it in here, but since I put it in here, I need to make the center here, and we have not used the subtract and multiply yet. So I need to do it right here, and I can do it easily by just changing to 0.5. And now I can rotate all of these tiles exactly as I should, but I need to make it rotating as well. And then we can do some rotation here by adding a floor and do a separate XYZ, and we can add a result here, and the floor will then make all the decimals go away. So now we only got 0, 1, 2, 3 in the X direction. We also get 0, 1, 2, 3 in the Y direction, and we can use those together so we can add them, so we get 4 different values here. So Shift A, convert to math, and we change it to add, put it in here and here, and then you can see that if I put this to the angle, we get different angles on each of these tiles. Now we only have to fix those, and we can do it by changing the calculation here to be radians, and we can use a pi for that. So we add a multiply, Shift D, multiply, and I think to make it turn as we would like, it's half a pi, so that means this little sign here, and then we can take pi, just write pi, times 0.5, and yes, we are very close now. If we go exactly as this, you can see now that we have a center point here, but here it's more the center of the star, and we can fix that, I think, by just changing the value from the floor. So if I move this and put add, let's say add 1 here, yes, it worked. So then we just make the rotation, remove the rotation a bit, and then we get everything correct. So now the only thing we have left is to make those tiles that are on the outside. And that should be rather easy, because that we have done a lot of times before. We just use the part from the subtract, multiply, absolute. So we start here with the separate. So from a separate we can then use maximum, so Shift D, but take this here and take this here, and I can snatch this one so we can see what we are doing. And now it looks like this. So we get all these things. We just need to convert them a bit and so on. So I think we go for minimum instead. We can even use smooth minimum. Then we get this, and with smooth minimum we can also control this. And then we also add a map range into this. So Shift A, converter, map range, and then we can flatten it out using this. I can go to 0.1 or something like that. I could take this down a bit as well, so we get a little bit harder corners here, so something like that. But if I now combine this, I can use a color mix. Let's see if we have found everything correct. So Shift A, and I go to color, mix color, and then this will control the results. So go to factor from the map range, and then I can take this to the output, and I can take this to like this. But now let's see. Now we can see that we do not have the tiles correct here, because they are like a half wrong, so to say. So we need to move them, and that we can easily do with the subtract. So Shift D, subtract, and put this to 1, I think. But let me see. I will take a smoother step. Yes, we change this to maximum, so then we get everything to work. So now we have it in exactly as this, and everything looks fine. And the only thing is that I can go even closer with this, so 0.05 or something, and then we get it in as we should. So now we have everything with except the color in here. So we add a color as well. So that is just to add a color ramp here, like this. Change it to static or constant, and we need another color as well, and connect that to the color here. And now we have this here, and that is what? That is white. So we make this like gray or something so we can see every color. So now we have every color. So this part here that is black, we go with the eyedropper to the blue. This part that is gray, so we select the gray, that is the black part, so we go to the black, and the white should be as white as possible, and I think it is. Yes, it is. So then we have that, and we can also make the edges a bit darker, so something like that. And I think it's the principle that takes, yes, so we just take away the principle just to see it. But if you need some bump maps and so on, of course you need a principle back. Now I'm just comparing colors with each other, see that we get this pattern. But it looks like we finally did it, and as you could see, it was a lot of back and forth here to make everything happen. Rotation and copy and paste and cutting and everything here. Sometimes we use something that was from the center point, and sometimes we started from the corners and so on. So it was not that easy, but it's solvable, and now we have it in. So hopefully you learned something as well in this lesson, and I just say, as I normally do, bye for now and see you later.